Welcome viewers. Today on TV Box Stop, I have a product and a video on the importance of purchasing the right HDMI cable for 4K HDR display at various distances. This is the MavisLink fiber optic HDMI cable. You might wonder what's the importance of this video, and what's the big deal with your HDMI cable. Well, to find out after the break, I will demonstrate how it applies, and the importance of this type of cable in today's 4K video industry. Stay tuned, that's coming up next. Welcome back. So here I have the box that the cable comes in, and it says here on the box that it's a 30 feet 2.0 HDMI cable, and on the product page, you will see that it comes in a variety of lengths ranging from 6 feet up to 100 feet. So without further ado, I will do a quick unboxing. So this is the MavisLink fiber optic HDMI cable, and there's nothing special looking about it, but that's furthest from the truth. To explain the technology behind this new cable in the simplest of terms so that anyone at any level can understand, I will bring in two other HDMI cables for this demonstration. Here I have a standard 5 feet copper-base HDMI cable included with most display devices like televisions, gaming consoles, and TV boxes. And the other cable is a 50 feet copper-base cable used to transport display signal to devices further away from the source, like projectors and security camera monitors. Okay, so before you could understand why this type of cable, you first have to understand how it works. A couple of years ago we were introduced to flat-screen TVs and their new HDMI interface, and everyone soon had to come to terms with the fact that they had to use HDMI cables and compatible display devices to go with it. For a while everything was fine, because most devices sat right next to the TV, and the maximum output display resolution at that time was 720p. As time progressed, people started experimenting with the distance at which they could place their displays away from the device itself. This was mostly seen in stores and shopping malls, and we began to see much longer HDMI cables being used to carry this signal, and it worked well. That is until something changed. The world was introduced to high definition and 4K resolutions, and a new type of signal called high dynamic range, or HDR for short. This is where the problem started, and I will jump right into the 4K era. The stunning display of 4K HDR sent the world into a frenzy, with people swapping out their old 720 and 1080p televisions in favor of 4K HDR. People who used their normal 5 to 6 feet cables had no issues with the new display. However, persons who had their display placed over 15 feet from their new 4K HDR device began experiencing poor picture quality and picture drop-offs. The simple reason for this is that 4K HDR signal requires a cable to have lots of bandwidth and the required cable rating to carry the signal once it crosses 15 feet. Even some of the best high-quality copper-based HDMI cables, and those that have signal repeaters in them called active HDMI, cannot effectively carry 4K HDR over 15 feet. So the solution to this problem brings us to today's product, which is the latest type of HDMI cables called fiber optic HDMI. Even though they look the same, these cables perform the same function in a totally different way. For those of you who don't understand how fiber optics work, the simple explanation is that the video signal is not sent over copper wire to your TV. Instead, the signal is converted to light signal and sent over strands of fiberglass at speeds over 1,000 times the bandwidth provided by copper, and it does this with no loss in signal quality. Recently, we have seen HDMI fiber optic cables reach up to 200 feet in length, and this speaks volumes of the kind of bandwidth these cables have. These fiber optic cables are not recommended for everyone. As indicated earlier, regular copper-based 5 and 6 feet HDMI cables are adequate enough to carry 4K HDR signals without issues. Persons using projectors and screens that are over 15 feet away from devices like Blu-ray players, TV boxes, or gaming consoles, and need 4K HDR display will require this type of cable. Before I proceed, I would like to highlight a major difference when connecting a fiber optic HDMI cable to a device. A regular copper-based HDMI cable is bidirectional, meaning you can connect it in any direction and it will work. This is not the case with the fiber optic cable. The fiber optic cable has a source and a display, where the source end of the cable connects to the device, and the display connects to your TV or whatever display you have. If not connected correctly, you will not get a picture. And here's why. If you compare the heads of the two cables, you would notice only one difference, and that is the fiber optic cable has screws and the copper cable doesn't. In the fiber optic cable there is a circuit board inside each end of the cable, where the board at the source end converts the display signal to light, and then sends it down the fiber optic strands to the other board at the display end that receives it. It then converts it back to the display signal and sends it out to the TV. The circuit board themselves are powered by copper wires inside the head of the cable that receive power from the HDMI port itself. So there is copper inside the cable, but it's not for transmitting signal. With that said, I will now connect each cable to my 4K HDR TV, and connect a TV box with 4K HDR display output to see the difference in performance. This is a resolution test at HD 1080p and 4K 2160p at 60 Hz, and an HDR video test using the 5 feet copper-based HDMI cable. I will start the resolution at 1080p HDR to show minimum HDR bandwidth, and then I will switch to 4K. The 5 feet copper-based cable had no issues whatsoever with the 1080p HDR and the 4K HDR resolutions, and the HDR video played perfectly. As mentioned earlier, short copper-based HDMI cables have no issues transmitting 4K HDR signals, so you don't need to run and purchase a fiber optic cable. And now the 50 feet copper-based HDMI cable, first in HD 1080p HDR resolution, and then in 4K HDR resolution. At HD 1080p resolution the 50 feet cable had no issues, and the 4K HDR video scaled down to 1080p and played okay in HDR quality. However, when I tried to switch to 4K resolution, there was no display whatsoever, and the box returned to its previous resolution of 1080p after the 15 seconds countdown timer. This proves the 4K HDR requires much higher bandwidth than 1080p, and this length of copper-based HDMI cable will not transmit a 4K signal to a display on the other side of a room in excess of 15 feet. However, it will transmit 1080p. And now for the featured product of today's video, the MavisLink 30 feet fiber optic HDMI cable. Well, the result speaks for itself. There is a definite difference in bandwidth between the 50 feet copper-based cable and the 30 feet fiber optic cable. The MavisLink cable provided sufficient bandwidth for 4K HDR to be transmitted at 30 feet. However, the results will be the same at lengths as long as 200 feet because of the fiber optic cable and electronics used inside these cables. In summary, even though fiber optic is not recommended for everyone and is not suitable for every situation as shown in the video, I know for a fact that there will be users and enthusiasts who will still purchase this type of cable because of the technology it contains, and because users simply like the best things connected to their device. So if you're looking for a high-quality affordable fiber optic HDMI cable, the MavisLink brand is a great option. Starting at just $54 for the 15 feet, $59 for the 30 feet, and just $79 for the 100 feet, you can finally enjoy 100% 4K HDR display quality across various devices. Use the link provided in the description area below this video to be taken directly to the product page, and it also helps support this channel in delivering more products. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel and click the notifications bell to be notified when I release the next product or TV box review. Keep the streaming community alive, and see you in the next one.